Okay, Callisto, as a wedding present, you may have that ship when I'm done taking the crew to their destinations. Newton then told his crew that they would all go to sleep, and when they would awake, Mutania would be a thing of their past. Before they did go to bed, Callisto said, I think we should celebrate our final night aboard Mutania. And they did. As they celebrated, Callisto told his wife to strip and dance sexually about the bridge, get the others all hot and sweaty for their wives. She did what Callisto ordered, and after celebrating, everyone was having a good time with their wife. Newton wasn't married to Sheena, so he had a hard time controlling his body. He just had Sheena naked while he was in his clothes. As the hours went by, Newton became so hot and horny that he decided to pour cold water all over him. Newton walked out of his cell and heard muffled laughter. Callisto was doing something with the ship's computer. What are you doing with the computer? Asked Newton. Callisto quickly pressed a button and said, I want to beat this computer once and for all in a game of chess. I don't want to leave it by saying, what if? Oh, said Newton. And he went back to his room wondering if Callisto was telling the truth. Callisto quickly pressed the button again and looked warily as he tried to program the ship for something. The next day, Newton's crew looked really sad. Mutania was now orbiting Earth. Mason and his wife stepped up onto the transporter plates. Storm and his wife got up there with their luggage also. Do you have everything? Asked Newton. They said yes. Newton looked sad and said, I hope your book sells. I'm pretty sure you will make millions with what you have gone through on Mutania, my clone. Newton hugged Mason, then shook Storm's hand. God forgive me, he said, and he pressed the button, then turned the switch. Watching them go was like a dagger in Newton's side. A few weeks later, Obakoba and his wife got up onto the transport plates as Mutania orbited around the planet Kumba. By now, Newton and his crew were crying. Live long and populate, said Obakoba. Newton then watched his old friend Adams flare up with his wife's and then disappear. Seeing that caused Newton to crumble to his knees. Beam them back, Newton, beam them back, begged Sheena. No, we have got to progress. We have got to live we have got to leave. Mutania is stagnating our human existences. Newton then ran out of the transporter room. He crashed down onto his throne and started crying. I feel like I have just killed my crew. Newton started kissing him. Newton groaned and said, Gosh, change is painful. If it's for the better, it's really, really agonizing. Even if it's for the better, it's really, really agonizing. What's got into me? Am I doing the right thing? What's compelling me to want to live on that planet Sardana? Is my love for that planet a rational one? Callisto looked sad, as did his wife. He went down the hall, then came back with a champagne bottle. He poured the champagne into the bottle to the brass goblets and gave one to the depressed Newton. To us, said Newton. To us, said Callisto. The four clinked the goblets and drank down the champagne. I think I'll have another one, said Newton, and he drank another one down. Newton then suddenly felt compelled to drink the whole bottle, and he did. Newton, really? Laughed Callisto. Gee, I sure hope the Branco body isn't prone to alcoholism, said worried Sheena. Newton then shocked the crew by getting a dull, glass-eyed look to his eyes. Shall we go? He asked, and unemotional. Newton walked over to his throne and pressed a button. Suddenly, the floor in the middle of the bridge split apart, and the large ship's computer came up out of it. Newton began pressing buttons on it. As he programmed the ship to fly into the near sun, Callisto was playing a game of chess on the other side of it. His wife watched him and became shocked to see Callisto making a lot of illogical moves. Why did you bring your king out? She asked him. Callisto just smiled. It's finished, said Newton in a monotone, and he and the rest of the inhabitants of Mutania descended down into the small, cramped escape craft. Newton buckled himself down into his seat and asked, "Do we have all the oxygen containers?" "Yes," the three said. Yes, said the three others. Newton then told his crew to put on their space helmets and to turn on their uh, suits when the air would start to get cold, to get bad. A few minutes later, Newton said, "Here we go," and he pressed the button. Suddenly, the ship began making a loud siren-like sound as the engines kicked in. Newton pressed another button. All of a sudden, the bottom side of the Mutania opened up. The crew saw the shiny, bright stars of the universe shining through the thick, leaded window of the craft. Suddenly, the stars began moving. "What's happened? What's happening?" asked Sheena. "Mutania is now traveling toward the closest sun," said Newton. "We're still attached to it," yelled Callisto frightenedly. Yelled Callisto's frightened wife. "Don't worry," said Newton, in a daze. And he pressed a button, causing the craft to start shaking. "What's happening?" screamed Doretha, Callisto's wife. Newton started sobering up. He checked the controls. "Something on the ship is keeping us from leaving," he shouted. Newton then looked frightened and said, Zeeb is keeping us from going. We'll have to take Zeeb with us." Newton turned off the ship's engines and had his turned off his ship's engines, had him and his crew put their space suits on, then opened the hatch to the top of the craft. Zeeb, let go of the ship," demanded Newton. "Take me with you," the robot girl demanded back. "Come with us." Zeeb pressed a button to the tractor beam, turning it off. Zeeb then entered the craft also. Several seconds later, the spaceship shot away from Mutania's suicidal flight. The craft then stopped in the middle of space when Newton stopped it. "What are you doing, Newton?" asked Sheena. Newton moved to the TV screens and Newton moved over to two TV screens and turned them on. When the screens lit up, one television screen showed the outer hull of Mutania, the other showed the bridge. Newton whined a little when he saw his stone statue of a bird perched above his throne again. Although Mutania's generators were humming as it accelerated through space, the bridge looked very peaceful. Newton then looked at the other TV screen that showed Mutania's outer hull as it got closer and closer to the star that began to grow brighter and brighter. Callisto, Dirtha, and Sheena looked away. They couldn't dare watch what was about to happen, especially Sheena. It was almost like watching the death of a close friend. Newton watched the star grow larger and larger. "I can't watch," said a terrified Sheena. "Tell me when it's over," said Callisto. Suddenly the sun filled half of the viewing screen and grew faster. The outer hull of Mutania got brighter and brighter. Newton's eyes began to bulge. He started breathing harder and harder. The bridge of Mutania started distorting due to the increasing heat waves effects on the camera. Newton started shaking. No, he started to say. "God, what have I done? This can't be happening." Suddenly the outer hull of Mutania began to glow red. The camera that was taping it started to get snowy, and a huge warped image of the sun was now seen on the viewing screen. Newton started flipping out. He cried and raved. He leaped into his seat and turned on the ship's engine. Suddenly the spacecraft turned about and made a quick warp to the sun to hopefully save Mutania. "No, Newton, don't," shouted Sheena. "You'll kill us." My ship, shouted Newton with madness in his eyes. The ship got faster and faster. It was now traveling 20 times faster to the sun than Mutania was. "If I could just push against the side of Mutania, it could maybe send it off course." It's too late," Newton said Callisto. "Mutania just burned up in the sun." Newton let out a painful "no," then fell motionless on the controls. Sheena sadly turned off the spacecraft's engines. And that's all I'm going to read for now. Over now. This next story I'm about to read to you is called Sardana. Sardana. The air was cool, clean, and fresh as Newton and Sheena watched their first sunrise of Sardana. Before the two saw the first blinding rays of the sun that would burst up over the grassy hill, Newton and Sheena saw the last bit of light from the craft that brought them here disappear into the golden horizon. "I sure hope I did the right thing," said Newton. "You did, Newton." "I think you did," said Sheena. And they started kissing. Several hours later, the two walked into the nearest town. Since they wore spacesuits for clothes, Newton and Sheena got a lot of stares. Everyone else was dressed up like they were out of the 1950s and 60s. "This is getting embarrassing," said Sheena. "Yes, you're right. One thing is for sure, they aren't used to seeing people from other planets walking down their sidewalks," said Newton. The two then agreed to buy clothes that wouldn't be so attention-getting. The two walked into a clothes store. After picking out the clothes they wanted, they went to buy them. But even though they had diamonds, the salesman asked for cash. "Who are you?" asked the suspicious clothes salesman when Newton asked him if he could take a diamond for the clothes. "You think this is fake, don't you?" asked Newton. The man looked shifty-eyed. Newton and Sheena then realized that they would have to go to a jeweler. A few hours later, Newton and Sheena were sitting in a motel room watching boring shows on a black and white television set. Sheena looked worried, then saw Newton pacing back and forth from extreme boredom. "What's the matter, Newton?" she asked, not really wanting an answer. Newton had a depressed, anxiety-ridden look on his face. "I don't know what's the matter," lied Newton, and he crashed down onto the sofa with a sigh. "I'm bored," he said. "Well, let's do something," laughed Sheena. "We're not married yet. You want to get married tonight?" "Sure," said Sheena. And they were married in a courthouse. They were now called Mr. and Mrs. Matt Mason Newton. But since Newton wanted a new leash on life, he decided to go by his new name. Newton and Sheena still had a hard time fighting off boredom. They ended up having to get a house on Sardana. Since Newton didn't know anything about semi-20th century Earth living, he had to try to support Sheena and himself with very boring and routine jobs like dishwashing and lawn mowing. Newton and Sheena got a lot of money from one of their diamonds, but lost it the second week they were on Sardana due to gambling. On the third week, their money began to run out, and that was when boring job searching began to start. "What in the hell have I done to myself?" shouted Newton as he dried the dishes in the restaurant. Sheena was waiting tables in the same place with a look of depression on her face. The manager threatened to fire her if she didn't smile more. So depressed and bored did she become that she started messing up on her orders. She ended up serving another table by mistake. The manager heard the people complaining and she was fired. Newton felt like breaking some dishes to get fired also, but he knew that would be the end of their food supply. So he controlled himself. "We're in hell," he said to himself. The man doing the dishes started telling dirty jokes that caused lots of laughs to the people around him. Newton wasn't laughing, making the guy think Newton was a goody-goody. "What, are you so great and I'm so stupid that you can't laugh at my jokes?" shouted the man angrily. "Your jokes are funny," shouted Newton with depression. "Your jokes are funny," shouted Newton with depression. "No, you're just saying that so you won't make me hit you. You're really just afraid of me is all." And he savagely hit the bored, depressed Newton in the face, sending Newton crashing down to the